Okay, I'm going to walk you through this connective tissue self-quiz. The answers will be at the very bottom, and I'll put this link to this document in the description of the video. So the first tissue you see here, remember if you're looking at this, you're thinking little bugs trapped in a spider web, or some people say spaghetti and meatballs. So that would clue you in that this specific tissue is going to be areolar. The subcategory, in subcategories, you know that cartilages and bone will belong to supporting connective tissue, and you know that blood, which is free flowing, is going to belong to the fluid subcategory. So if they don't belong in those two categories, supporting or fluid, then they fall into connective tissue proper. And that's where areolar belongs to, in the subcategory connective tissue proper. The big tissue category here would be connective tissue. The dark lines here, they look like dark purple lines. Those are going to be your elastic fibers. And these pink lines running throughout here, those pink lines are going to be collagen fibers. Then the little bugs or dots that are in here, here, and here, you'll see them all over the place. Those are going to be your fibroblasts. Remember, fibroblasts are a specialized nuclei that produce fibers. So anytime you have some of these tissues and you have fibers in them, then you're not going to call the nucleus a nucleus, you're going to call it a fibroblast. And that's what number 6, the answer for number 6 is, fibroblast. The next tissue here, remember you can see this tissue in this color, or you can see it where the little dots here are going to be pink and the little strings would be almost like a fluorescent blue. They're very, very bright, bold blue. This tissue here would be reticular. Number 8, the subcategory, remember it's not supporting because it's not a cartilage or bone, and it's not free-flowing blood, so it's not fluid. Therefore, it's going to be connective tissue proper. The dark lines, you can see it at the white arrow, those dark lines are reticular fibers. Number 11, this specific tissue is going to be your dense regular. Remember, dense regular looks like little waves, and on the waves, on top of the waves, you can see here that little dark dash there and these little dots. Those look like sticks or little twigs that are floating on top of those waves. That clues you in to the fact that this is dense regular. Number 12, the subcategory. Again, it's not a cartilage or bone, so it's not supporting, and it's not free-flowing blood, so it's not fluid. Therefore, it's going to fall into the subcategory of connective tissue proper. Number 13, the big tissue category, is going to be connective tissue. The pink lines there in number 14, those pink lines are going to be collagen fibers. And then number 15, those small dots or dashes that are on top of the little waves there, those are going to be your fibroblasts. Now moving on to this tissue with questions 16 and 17. I did identify this specific tissue is going to be mesenchyme. Remember, mesenchyme just look like a bunch of pink nuclei. There's nothing else in there. This tissue, mesenchyme, does not have a subcategory because this is embryonic connective tissue. In other words, this is baby connective tissue, and it hasn't grown up to decide what kind of connective tissue he's going to be. So he doesn't yet know which subcategory he's going to belong in. This is the only one in the connective tissues that does not have a subcategory. Number 17, identify the big tissue category. This is going to be connective tissue. And this tissue here with questions 18 through 22, I put both of these pictures on here because I know on our quizzes and some of our practicals, you'll see even in our book, you'll see a picture that looks like this with these little black squiggly lines all over the place. This is going to be elastic tissue. So you can see it look like this, or you can see it look like this bottom picture here more often. And our slides tend to look like this picture right here. This tissue is known for small, thin fibers that run pretty much straight up and down. And there's going to be a lot of space between these fibers. So you can see a lot of space between each of these little fibers. This tissue, specific tissue, is elastic tissue. The subcategory is not cartilage or bone, so it's not going to be supporting, and it's not free-flowing blood, so it's not going to be fluid. Therefore, it's going to fall into connective tissue proper. Number 20, the big tissue category is going to be connective tissue. The pink lines here are elastic fibers. So it's not collagen fibers, because remember, dense regular pink fibers were collagen fibers. In elastic tissue, these pink fibers are elastic fibers. Make sure on a practical or on a quiz, you are putting elastic tissue and not just elastic, because later on you're going to see that we also have an elastic cartilage, and your professor needs to know that you know whether it's elastic tissue or elastic cartilage. So make sure to put that full name there. Okay, number 20, the big tissue category would be connective tissue. Again, those pink lines, 21, those pink lines are going to be elastic fibers. And the little bitty black to dark purple dots here, those are going to be your fibroblast. The next tissue with questions 23 through 29. Identify this specific tissue. This specific tissue is going to be blood. And in blood, you're looking for a lot of these little pink donut looking cells here. And then every once in a while, you'll see a little bit larger cell with a dark purple nucleus in it. So that clues you in that this is going to be blood. The subcategory, remember, if you cut yourself, blood is free flowing out of the body, so blood would be a fluid connective tissue. So the subcategory is fluid connective tissue. Number 25, the big tissue category is going to be connective tissue. Number 26, the cell at the red arrow is a red blood cell. Another name for this is erythrocyte. Number, which one are we at now? 27. The cell at the blue arrow, all of the cells that have a purple nucleus, so this or this, if it has a nucleus, it's going to be a white blood cell. And the white blood cell is also called a leukocyte. 28, identify the cell here at the yellow arrow, these two dots right here. Those cells are going to be your platelets. Platelets are also called thrombocytes. And number 29, identify the background or the matrix at the green arrow. Oh, I apologize, that's actually a black arrow there. That is going to be your plasma. Number 30, identify this specific tissue. And I'm looking at the top one first, and then we'll go into some of these other pictures. And you'll see the little bracket here. That's because I wanted to include all three of these pictures. So for 30, you're looking at this picture right here. If you see this under a slide, it looks like a lava flow. So you see the lava coming down from either side of the quote-unquote volcano, and it's going down, 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 and all the debris is being collected on the sides. And the quote-unquote debris is going to be all of these fibroblasts in the lacunae. So if we take this little bitty area right here and we blow it up, we're looking at this picture, the bottom right-hand picture, and you'll see the different structures at the bottom, okay? And we'll go on identifying all this in just a second. This picture at the bottom left, you will see a picture looking like this sometimes in the book, in the lab book, and sometimes on a quiz or practical. So I wanted to make sure you had all of the pictures here. Okay, so number 30, identify this specific tissue. Remember, it looks like a lava flow with all the chondrocytes and lacunae crammed up in stacks on the side. So this is going to be your fibrocartilage. Number 31, identify the subcategory. This subcategory, if it's fibrocartilage, cartilages and bone belong in the subcategory supporting connective tissue. Number 32, identify the big tissue category. This will be connective tissue. Number 33, okay, so now we're looking at the bottom right-hand picture here. Remember, we've taken this little snippet and we've blown it up here. So number 33 says, identify this background or background substance pointing at the yellow arrow. The background substance is going to be the matrix. Number 34 and 35, you're looking at the red arrow here. 34 says, identify the cell. That would be your chondrocyte. Remember, chondro means cartilage, cyte means cell. So the little bitty dot inside here, the dots, that's going to be your chondrocyte. Number 35, identify the space. So each chondrocyte sits inside a space bubble, and that space bubble, you can see them really well right here. Those little pockets or bubbles are called your lacunae. Okay, now for the tissue that's pictured here with questions 36 through 44. This tissue, what you see looking at it here is it looks like tree rings. The only tissue that even looks anything like tree rings is going to be the bone. So 36, the specific tissue would be bone. Number 37, identify the subcategory. The subcategory, remember, your bones and cartilages are going to be in the subcategory of supporting. So number 37, the answer would be supporting connective tissue. Number 38, identify the big tissue category. This would be connective tissue. Number 39 says, identify the structure at the yellow arrow, the rings. The rings are the lamellae. Number 40, identify the cell at the red arrow. The cell at the red arrow would be the osteocyte. Number 32, identify the space at the red arrow. That space would be a lacunae. So you can't really tell it on a microscope slide unless it's focused in a lot more than this one is. But just like in the cartilages, you have a little bitty air pocket or space pocket with the cell inside of it. So remember, your space pocket is the lacunae. And here with bone, we can't call it a chondrocyte because chondro meant cartilage. So now we have to call that little cell an osteocyte. Osteo means bone and cyte means cell. So an osteocyte is a bone cell. Okay, now we're down to question 42. If your professor doesn't divide these out, cell or space, and they just say, and identify this structure or this entire structure, you would say an osteocyte in lacunae or in the lacunae. Number 43 says, identify the structure at the blue arrow. So you're looking at this middle hole here. That middle hole at the blue arrow, this is your central canal. Now we're on 44. Identify the structure at the green arrow, the tiny lines. So the tiny little lines radiating through here, you can see another one really well right there, and you can see some of these black little lines coming off here. They almost look like teeny tiny electricity bolts. Those are going to be your caniculi. Caniculi actually means tiny canal. The tissue here with questions 45 through 50. Identify this specific tissue. This tissue, what you're looking at here is it has a baby pink or baby purple, sometimes even a baby bluish gray. That's going to clue you into this is hyaline cartilage. And hyaline cartilage also has fairly large lacunae with chondrocytes inside. So 45, the specific tissue would be hyaline cartilage. 46, identify the subcategory. We said it was a cartilage, therefore it's going to be supporting connective tissue. Number 47, identify the big tissue category. The big tissue category here is going to be connective tissue. Number 48, we're looking at the yellow arrow. It says to identify the background. So number 48 would be matrix. Number 49, identify the cell at the red arrow. The cell would be the chondrocyte. 50, identify the space at the red arrow. The space would be the lacunae. The tissue here with questions 51 through 54. This looks like cottage cheese or a bunch of air bubbles. So this specific tissue, number 51, is going to be adipose. Adipose are your fat cells or your fat tissue. Excuse me. 52, identify the subcategory. The subcategory would be connective tissue proper. 53, identify the big tissue category. That would be connective tissue. Number 54, identify the structure at the red arrow. It's talking about that little dot right there. That would be your nucleus. Now we're looking at this tissue here with questions 55 through 59. Identify the specific tissue in 55. This tissue has fibers going all different direction, but they look like the same type of fibers. So this is going to be dense irregular. Remember, dense regular was going in one direction. It looked like little waves. Dense irregular is going in all different ways. So it doesn't have a regular pattern like the dense regular. So this is called dense irregular. 56, identify the subcategory. That would be connective tissue proper. Number 57, identify the big tissue category. That would be connective tissue. Number 58, identify all these pink structures or these pink lines here. All of the pink in here is going to be collagen fibers, just like with your dense regular. The pink running through here would be collagen fibers. Number 59, identify the small purple dots. They're very hard to see. There might be one right there, one right here. Those purple dots or blackish purple dots are going to be your fibroblasts. Now number 61, or sorry, 60. 60, identify this specific tissue. You're looking at a very dark band. That dark band clues you in that this is going to be elastic cartilage. So if you've ever seen a woman who's pregnant and you've actually looked closely at their pants, they have this big, thick, elastic cartilage band at the top because, again, pregnant women, they're expanding quite large and they need that big elastic band so their size can change. So when you're thinking about elastic cartilage, you're thinking this elastic band, that thick band right here, okay? So that clues you in that this is elastic cartilage. Number 61, the subcategory. Remember, cartilages and bone belong to the subcategory of supporting connective tissue. So 61 would be supporting connective tissue. Number 62, identify the big tissue category. That would be connective tissue. Number 60, where am I at? 63, identify the background at the yellow arrow. The background would be the matrix. Number 64 says identify the cell at the red arrow. That is going to be a chondrocyte because this is cartilage. So the cells inside there are chondrocytes. Number 65, identify the space at the red arrow. The space is the lacunae. Remember, the chondrocyte here in the middle is going to sit inside this little air pocket or air bubble called the lacunae. Number 66, identify the structure, the black lines, at the yellow arrow. And you can see the really dark black line right here. That black line is going to be elastic fibers. And that is the last tissue that we have to go over. And you will see that the answers here will be provided at the bottom. I'm going to include this document in the description of this video.